out, let loose. And we are live. Welcome to the show, everyone. As always, we're on the east side of downtown San Antonio. It's Wednesday night, and it's Mr. Wednesday night. Mr. Maximo. You don't got to call me Mr. Should I call you Q, Mr. Q? Question.
Everybody calls me Q.
Q.
Question. Yeah.
We're gonna get to Q in a bit, but get all your questions down. If you're watching the live stream, wherever you're, I hope you're doing fabulous tonight. We want to know what you're doing, what y'all up to tonight. Let us know how you feeling about these gas prices. Let us know how you feeling about the Will Smith, Chris Rock incident. I know you got an opinion. We're going to get a lot of opinions out there tonight, but I got our guest, Q, in the house tonight. Q, what's up, man?
How you doing, brother?
Man, I appreciate you coming through.
Of course, man. It's my honor.
We had to get you through here, man, because let me set the backdrop. We like having a little bit of everybody down here. We bring artists, we bring business owners, we bring people that are just working 9 to 5s and moving mountains on a daily basis. But we had our guy down here, Spy MC. I told him I'd give him a shout out tonight because he said he'd be tuning in. Shout out to Spy, man. Good dudes. I got hooked up with Spy when I first moved down here from Michigan a few years ago by VODPOD. So we say what's up to VODPOD. We know she was down at the studio a couple of days ago with Adelante Wins. So congratulations on a successful live stream.
Dope.
Spy was talking about some of the top rappers in San Antonio, because I want to get your opinions on San Antonio as well, sure. Right? San Antonio art scene, rap scene, music, whatever
sure,
it may be.
Sure.
We know we got the Spurs here, but for a global audience, we want to know what they need to know about San Antonio.
Sure.
And Spy drops your name. He says, question without a doubt. He says artist development. And we didn't get much into your music history and background, which I want to get into tonight. We're going to talk about a lot of things. So drop your questions. But man, tell us, Q, who is Q? Who is Daniel as well? Tell us a little bit about yourself for the audience and for those that don't know you.
I am a studio janitor. That's what I do for a living.
Right
on. A little bit about me. I'm a dad first, so that's probably the thing that I'm most proud of and hold close to my chest. So
awesome.
Being a father, number one, and I try to be a really good dad. I didn't have, the greatest upbringing, so I'm trying not to be that person to my kids, which sometimes it's hard to do as busy I am. I'm very busy. So, but I'm just a guy who loves being creative and doing dope shit. And I wish I could be super more extensive about that.
It's all good.
That's really what it is.
Say it in a nutshell.
I just want to do dope shit. Create a legacy. I'm not someone who's motivated just by money or fame. I've done all that and it's been cool and had a little bit of success, but I just want to do cool shit. And so that's literally how I live my life, is just treat people good and do cool shit.
That's what's up. I noticed that about you when you came in here, because for those that don't know, I've never physically met you.
Yeah, it's the first time
We've never been around each other, but I noticed that about yourself, man. Just a cool vibe. And I think our people go off that vibe and that energy and
I'm
that
an energy
spirit.
guy. Like even I was telling someone this today, actually. It's pretty funny. I got a big team that works for me, and they were like, well, how did you find these people? And I said, I don't ever look at a resume. That's not how I lead. I'm a vibe guy. I go by energy. If your energy's good and I feel like you'll be the right fit, and that goes for my life. Like, my fiance is because the energy was there.
Yeah.
That's me walking in here. Like, I feel your energy. I'm an energy guy. I feed off of energy and vibes. I'm not what have you done? And it's funny to say that because people always tell me, man, you've done this and you've done that. I'm somebody who doesn't really, I'm not going to say I'm not proud of it. I'm proud of things I've accomplished, but I'm not someone who gets caught up in what I did 10 years ago. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It doesn't really mean much. You know what I mean? They're really just memories. And people have a lot of fond memories of me, which is fun and it's cool when somebody, pulls me to the side, but now I'm gray and old and fat. And,
Stop.
You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a change, but welcome change. And I like the path that I'm on, and my path is really about creating a legacy and helping people, creating opportunities, not just for myself, but for other people around me. And that's really how I live my life.
That's right, man. I was reading a book the other day, and not in the exact terms, man, but the book was talking about how everyone has to find their why, right?
Sure.
Everyone has a purpose, a reason. Why are you getting up in the morning, right? Maybe it's your kids, maybe it's to make money, whatever it may be. But the catch is that not all whys are created equal.
No,
everyone has different whys.
Sure.
And I think the true purpose of most people should be wrapped around, serving other people and helping other people, right? There's a primal unspoken gift that comes back to you when you help out other people, man.
No, I get it back all the time. It's funny. I really do live my life that way, and I'm someone who will open the door for anybody.
That's what's up.
Literally, you know what I mean? But just in business, in life, I've learned that instead of trying to hoard the things that are around me, if I can give back and I can provide opportunity, that stuff usually comes back to you. And if it doesn't, cool. The feeling of giving is always priority, but I've learned that there's a lot of things in this business. I mean, we were just talking before we came in here. A lot of things have happened for me because I've built great relationships with people, and I've always tried to help people. And you know, what I can get out of it has never been my motivation. It's always what I can do for others. But oddly enough, it usually will come back and help me in some way without me even asking for it.
That's what's up. And there's your reminder, folks. If you're watching live right now, make sure you're liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing to VODPOD Media, wherever it may be. We're live on YouTube and Facebook right now. If you need a reminder, go ahead and let that be your reminder about helping out other people. And you might not always looking to get something back, but it should be altruistic on why you're serving other people. Now, let's get into the goods here. Are you from San Antonio?
Yes.
Born and raised?
Born and raised. Took a little departure, lived in Los Angeles for about 9 years, on and off. Lived in New York City for about a year. But ultimately from San Antonio, raised here, the whole nine.
So we're going to get into your background and history, but as Q was walking up to the building, he has his sweatshirt on, and I could have swore it was Chris Rock from his younger school days with the high top fade he used to have.
It's actually Allen Iverson.
It's Allen Iverson.
But
So I got to ask you real quick. Give me your thoughts on this Will Smith Chris Rock thing, man. Since we're here right now,
there's two trains of thought for me. Is one, you got to have enough restraint in that setting not to do something like that. But at the same time, I can personally say if I was there and somebody was talking about my wife, you might get the same reaction, or at least I'd approach him backstage or pull him to the side. But at first I was kind of like, how in the hell is this happening?
Yeah.
You know,
how did it happen live?
It doesn't make a lot of sense. And why he wasn't escorted out afterwards, I asked those kind of questions. However, if you know the history, and I think the history between Chris Rock and Will and Jada has been out there. He's made comments before. They've been the butt of a ton of jokes. So I think it was one of those things where it just built up, and it was weird to see because he was kind of uncomfortably laughing when he first told the joke, and then you could tell his wife was uncomfortable, and then he just snapped. And, you know, everybody has an opinion, like, you know, he's got these crazy mental health issues and all this stuff. I've heard all these things from as far as, like, maybe he has a drug problem, maybe he's an alcoholic. I mean, they've taken it that far. But human emotion is something that's really hard to contain at times. And I know, you know, I consider myself a pretty nice guy, but if you cross
there's
me,
a button.
There's a button.
Everyone's got that button.
And some people's button is a little, it doesn't take as much pressure to push the button. Mm-hmm. And I think this was a culmination of years and years of just taking abuse, not only from Chris Rock, but just people in general. He's been the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He's looked as the nice guy. I just read his book. Like I was telling y'all, I read it like 2 weeks ago, Will Smith's book. And he touches on that, like how he's always had to kind of keep that image of the tough, you know, not the tough guy, the soft and sweet, you know, actor and not
Mr. Nice Guy.
Mr. Nice Guy. And sometimes, you know, that you finally take enough of that, you're gonna snap, and that was the moment. Unfortunately, it was in front of millions and millions of people.
Biggest
stage ever. It was the slap heard around the world. That's something now as a man he has to own up to and manage. And the thing that I hate about these situations is not just a Will Smith thing, and we talked about it a little bit earlier when I walked in, is people are quick to judge and cancel him for that, instead of finding out why and how do you improve that or how do you fix that. And that's like cancel culture in general. You know, I can see wanting to cancel someone in the moment for things, but when people start digging up stuff from 10, 15, 20 years ago, I have a problem with that, because 20 years ago I was an idiot. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
we all been there.
Dumb kid, you know, stealing shit and carrying guns and doing shit that I shouldn't have done. But I've evolved, and I'm a pretty productive member of society now. So there's always hope for someone. So mentalities can change, ideals can change, experience in life can really, you know, train you to be a different person. And even this experience for Will, I feel like now that he's never really had to face this kind of wrath from the public, and I think that will change him, and hopefully for the better. You know what I mean? But you know, that's it's unfortunate that it happened the way it did. But I mean, it also causes a conversation among people, and especially men, about aggression and violence and how you handle those things, and you know, someone attacking your wife and standing up for your wife versus physically assaulting someone who didn't physically assault you or your wife. I mean, those are conversations that we tend to have with children, but we don't really talk about them a lot as adults. So my opinion is really kind of two sides of it. I see both sides of it. I know that if it was me and I had been hearing these things about me and my wife for years from this certain person, maybe I wouldn't have slapped him. Maybe I would have punched him, or maybe I would have tackled him, or maybe, you know, I just pulled him to the side and have a scolding, you know what I mean? And just tell him, like, keep my wife's name out your mouth, that kind of thing. So, but I think it was just that moment. He just had this momentary, and it was a lapse of judgment, you know what I mean? Like, come on, man, you're about to win an Oscar. Why the hell would you ruin your moment? You know what I mean? I wouldn't have, you know what I mean? I think I would have been enough to, you know, hold back and say, all right, I'm going to do it. But it's interesting to also see the repercussions of it, because they didn't escort him out. They didn't arrest him. They didn't do any of those things. They let him go up and give a speech after he won an Oscar. Yeah. I find that a little odd, because I feel like if that would have been Jerry Seinfeld on stage and he slapped Jerry Seinfeld, they would have arrested him on the spot.
They would have came and got him very quick.
So it's weird, you know what I mean? It's just it's a weird dynamic to think about all the other pieces of it. It would have been different in my opinion if it would have been someone else. But
there's a lot of things to be said about all this, and everything is being played out on social media right now, on talk shows, podcasts, everywhere. I seen on ESPN Monday morning. I'm thinking, wow, this dude made ESPN. Yeah. But I'll say one thing about it, and is that you alluded to his speech. He did say Denzel told him that the devil comes for you at your highest moment. Yep. And that was like, man. So we saw a whole movie play out at the Oscars.
And I think, too, when you talk about that, you know, growing and evolving in real time, like, those are moments you end up doing something, you know, make an ass of yourself on national, you know, world.
And it don't matter
stage.
how old. You don't got to be a young man.
But to have someone like Denzel pull you to the side and say some words to you, well, those things will probably stick with you. A lot further than anything else. So what I take from it is I think Will has done enough good in the world to make up for the bad. It's going to take a while to repair his image from a PR standpoint, and that's all the business side of it. But man to man, I hope that, you know, he can sit down with Chris Rock and have a conversation and explain his actions, and Chris Rock can say, hey, you know, these were just jokes. And I think, too, you know, that's not the right place to assault anyone, but I don't think there's any real place. But, you know, when you go into, you know, we were talking about it, too, you go into a comedy club, you know what you're there for. You're going to face something like that. I don't necessarily agree that the Oscars are a place for that, but the Oscars are notorious for having hosts roast people in the crowd. So it comes with the territory. And you just gotta have thicker skin than that. But it is your wife, you know? And I know people made that joke, but I think it's actually true. Is what are you gonna do? You can go up there and handle it, or you're gonna go home and have your wife cry to you and yell at you, why didn't you defend me? And so he took the ultimate stand, and unfortunately it's probably gonna cost him in more ways than one.
It's gonna cost him. So this is my last take on this, because it's at the point where I don't really want to talk about it anymore. I'm sure you don't either.
Sure.
But I'm going to still rock with Chris. I'm going to still rock with Will. Here's why. Is because we can't, as you alluded to with cancel culture, we can't continuously cancel everyone. Okay. We can't discard everyone. You're going to look around and ain't nobody going to be left.
That's true.
We need each other. We need people, right? We need to have interaction.
How do you evolve as people if you're not willing to let people make mistakes?
Second, third, fourth, fifth chances.
There's a certain line. There's a certain line that you don't want to cross. You know, when it comes to, you know, harming children or racism.
Absolutely.
Or things, there's lines that you really don't want to cross, and you really want to take a stand against. But some of this stuff is just, I mean, it's you know, the joke itself wasn't even. To me, you know, G.I. Jane was a Navy SEAL. To me, that's
what I heard people say that too. You know, she was a badass.
She was a badass. So like, I don't get the outrage over it. But like I said, in the moment, I didn't get it. But after going back and hearing the things that he said in the past, he was on a podcast, I think not a year ago, 2 years ago, saying more things about them and how if Will wanted to win an Oscar, he should make a better movie. So he's been stirring the pot.
Yeah.
And some of it doesn't seem in the realm of just comedy. It seems in the realm of I'm just talking shit about him.
Personal.
It could be personal. And they've known each other for a really long time. So, I mean, Chris Rock was on an episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I remember that. So they've known each other for a really long time. But to your point, they're both icons in their respective sports, so to say. And I'm a fan of both of them. I'm not gonna stop supporting either one of them. I mean, there's no reason to really stop supporting Chris, I don't think. But even from Will's standpoint, like, man, it's like two homies fighting. I'm not gonna pick a side. I'm just
they're gonna do an episode of Red Table Talks. They're gonna patch it up. They're gonna talk about the illness that Jada has. They're gonna raise money for that.
Sure.
And they're gonna patch it up. That's how things play out sometimes. It's unfortunate that it had to happen. It happened. How do we learn from it and we grow? And how do we stop stirring up the shit? I like to stir it up more than anybody.
Yeah.
But come on, man. Let's get over this.
But here's the other thing, too, man. Sometimes when you think it's unfortunate, but some of the most unfortunate events, usually, if you spin them the right way, can turn into something positive.
Into something good.
So if they can turn into something positive, great. And if you can't, just move on. Like, it's over and done with. I know we're going to see it for the next year. It's going to be memes and, but it is what it is.
So you came in here today with some clean ass Iversons from what, 96? What is that?
Yeah, these are the 25th anniversary of the first Iverson shoe, but it's called The Question.
I know.
It's called The Answer. So
he's got the Q at the back.
One of my favorite shoes.
That's what's up. So talk to me. You got this Iverson sweatshirt on with the
Iverson,
GOAT.
I'm just a huge Iverson fan. I've always been an AI fan.
Why you like him?
Just I mean, to me, he was one of the first players to bring hip hop culture really into basketball, where it was like prevalent. He was rocking chains and cornrows and tattoos and street culture, and the music was all part of his swagger. So he was like just one of my favorite players. And then Jordan also was one of my favorite players, but for him to cross Jordan over early in his career, I just fuck with that. I fuck with the underdogs, and he was an underdog. A lot of people don't realize that. He was one of the best high school football players in the nation.
Oh, come on.
And was supposed to go to Notre Dame and then got into a fight, a race riot.
Got into another physical altercation.
And imagine if they wouldn't have gave him a second chance. We would have never had Allen Iverson.
Man.
And the stuff he does for the community now, I'm a big fan of. So
he's a legend.
He's a legend.
A lot of people gravitate to certain style of ball players. But speaking of like the swagger, the bravado, the culture, man, I grew up in Michigan. And it's interesting because all this ties together. The Fab Five. The Fab Five down in the early 90s, baggy shorts, bald heads, in your face,
dog. It's so funny is those are probably the two from my childhood. How old are you?
38.
So I'm a little older than you. I'm 42. So my childhood was Fab Five, Allen Iverson, Shaquille O'Neal.
Beast.
That was just my... Shaq rapped. The Fab
Dude, you remember
Five.
that movie Blue Chips?
Of course.
Remember that? We were talking about that in the studio the other day, man. That was a classic. You had Penny Hardaway.
Nick Nolte is
Nobody
coach.
really knew Penny before that
great.
film, and this dude was out there 6'7", silky smooth point guard. Yeah. And they put it on film. It was a great film.
Yeah.
It was like a cult classic.
No, it's a cult classic. Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, University of Michigan, who's coached by Juwan Howard now, who was in the Fab Five, also slapped somebody.
Yeah, coach.
From Wisconsin, a coach. So it had me thinking, how do we as men handle our issues, our conflicts, our problems? I mean, it's a hard thing, man. It's a hard thing to kind of come to terms with.
Some of the stuff is, you have tribal and territorial just instinct to protect yours and what's your own, and we have testosterone, unfortunately.
That too.
So those things come into play, and like I said, I consider myself a nice guy, but I also can become a hothead if you push the right button.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think we're also taught as youngsters, young men, not to cry about things, not to be emotional. To sometimes, I was raised by a stepfather who, if I got my ass whooped, he would tell me, well, then you're going to go back and fight the dude until you can beat him. Yeah,
that's how our people grew up, man.
You know what I'm saying? So I grew up that way. So that's the mentality that I was raised with. And there's a culture behind it. The male culture period is very, and it's just very dominated by stand up for yourself, be aggressive, alpha male. And so our instinct, instead of trying to talk through things or trying to understand things, is physicality.
Yeah.
And especially if you're bigger than someone, that's the easiest way to win an argument, is to impose your will by sheer size.
Impose your will, no pun intended.
Right. So it's exactly that, you know what I mean? And you look at the Chris Rock situation, Does Will Smith go slap The Rock?
I know everyone said that too.
Probably not.
I don't know. I think he might have tried
He
something.
might have tried.
But I mean, I don't know.
Chris Rock is,
much smaller.
Hit the 150
He ain't no
pounds.
fighter.
He ain't no fighter. You know what I mean? You can tell he's not. So, same thing. Juwan Howard is this dominant 6'10", over some little fat coach from Wisconsin. Obviously, to end the argument, I'm going to slap the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Like, we don't got to talk about this no more. But we have to do a better job as men as we raise this next generation.
Absolutely.
To be a little more productive in that. I'm not against physicality if it's the last line of the last thing that you could actually do to solve something, but it shouldn't be the de facto thing that we jump to, and we often do. You know what I mean? That's why you have violence in the streets and you have all these things. It's the de facto way to ease your aggression.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
comment if you're watching this right now and you a man. Listen, we want to give you the opportunity to be vulnerable. Ain't nothing wrong with that, man. Look, we all cry. We have feelings. We have emotions. And I didn't think the interview was going to go here, right? But come on. We could talk about all that because, look, this is real, man. Look, our people have experienced trauma, sadness, extreme pain.
Yep.
And so these are real conversations we got to have. And we're going to get there in future conversations. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the sports scene, because you talked about Allen Iverson, an icon. We talked about the Fab Five. What are your thoughts on the current sports scene and culture? I mean, are you watching basketball? What are your thoughts on the Spurs, the Lakers? What you got?
I watch all of it. So, interesting enough, man, I have a 16-year-old son. He's probably watching this right now. So my son is autistic, but high functioning, obsessed with sports, but specifically basketball.
Okay.
So I can't go a single day without having a conversation about sports.
That's what's up.
That's what we talk about. So I'm heavily invested in that, and then I run a sports marketing company. We're doing some stuff with Young Money Sports and a bunch of agents and athletes. So heavily involved with sports. Obviously, the boxing stuff I'm involved. The culture of sports is interesting right now because, especially now that the NCAA has lifted all the NIL stuff.
Yeah.
Now you have talent that's able to go out and actually generate revenue and take deals that they weren't able to take before. And you're now seeing the emergence of the social media sports star. We didn't have that growing up, and now you have guys that are, have a huge following, and they're selling music and T-shirts and NFTs and all these different things. I find the direct-to-consumer stuff with athletes very, very interesting. So yeah, it's the sports world is just growing outward. It used to just be this trajectory where owners and the people involved with sports directly were the ones who were benefiting from that, and now it's definitely a players' league in almost every league, especially basketball. But the NFL is getting close to that, and it's changing. It's changing where athletes, I don't really want to put him on blast, so I'm not going to say who, but one of the Spurs players I'm close with, and he texted me at halftime, and I thought that was so intriguing. Like,
why are you looking at your phone?
Why are you texting me at halftime? So it's a different world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We live in this hyper-connected world, and athletes can have conversations with people in real time. You have Instagram, you have, Twitch, you have all these different things. Athletes getting into esports and gaming. I think all of it is we're having this kind of convergence of culture and media and retail, and it's exciting, but it's a lot to navigate. It's very fragmented compared to when probably me and you grew up, and we saw something on TV and that was about it.
So speaking of that real quick, what you were just saying made me think of the Super Bowl halftime performance.
Sure.
What'd you think of that?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I mean, obviously I'm a child of hip hop, so anything hip hop related I'm going to gravitate towards, but I loved it. I thought it was well done. It really honored everybody that was there, and especially since it was on the West Coast. We were out there, so it was phenomenal. I was blown away by it. Yeah,
that's what's up. So let's go back. I know we jumped around, we getting into it. Let's talk about your musical career. How'd you get started in the hip hop game?
Well, you say hip hop game or you say hip hop, because the game is a lot different. The business of it's different. But I started rapping when I was really, really young. And really, it's funny, as a means of just survival. I grew up actually not too far from here, W.W. White and Rigsby area, and then lived over in Converse. And coming up, that's how I made friends. It was sports and hip hop, and that's why I'm passionate about those two things so much. They gave me the ability to make friends, lifelong friendships with some people, just freestyling and rapping. And then I realized well, I got to be really, really good at this if I'm going to stay in the circle, so to speak. And so I just worked really hard at it, and put in 30, 40,000 hours of just writing and just perfecting my craft when it came to just being an MC. And I say the word MC, a lot of people don't even use that anymore. But
not anymore, yeah.
I was an MC. So like Spy the MC calls himself an MC. I love that because that's what I started as. I didn't start trying to make money or shoot a music video. Like I was a battle rapper. That's how I started, and just doing battles. And through that, I met a guy out here who's one of my lifelong friends. He was actually my first music manager. He was going to St. Mary's Law School, heard me rap in front of the Bonham, which was they had a Wednesday night straight night we used to go to and like get fucked up, and we'd all freestyle out front. And he heard me freestyle with a buddy of mine, my man Les, was like, yo, y'all should be a group. I live in LA. I was just here visiting because I went to law school here. I have a bunch of connections in the music industry. Let's take y'all out to LA and shop some of y'all's music. So we started recording with a homeboy of mine named Smooth, who made all the beats. Got out to LA, and literally my first day, and I rode a Greyhound bus to LA actually, and went out there. I was 17 years old, and I auditioned for Loud Records. Met Steve Rifkin, who was one of my heroes that, basically created Street Team Marketing, and, Loud Records. He signed Wu-Tang Clan and Big Pun and all these just amazing artists that I was enamored with. So that was my day one in LA. And then that night I was on stage freestyling with Exhibit and the Alcoholics, and I was like, I want to do this as a career. And then the next day he took me to a studio, walked me in the studio and said, man, we're going to audition for someone's record label. And I walked in with my boy Les, and they said, just get on the mic and go freestyle, go into the live room. And I looked in, and Magic Johnson's sitting inside the studio. And I was like, man, why the hell is Magic Johnson here? Well, he had a record label and had heard our music and was considering signing us. So we auditioned for him. He ultimately signed the R&B singer Avant instead of us. Huge mistake. But that launched my music career, where I knew that's what I wanted to do for a living. Yeah. That part of it kind of fell apart. We had a couple of deals offered to us. Didn't really pan out. We were young. I had just had my first son when I was like 18 years old. So I joined the military. And
wow.
Just like,
that's a reversal. Stunning reversal.
But but I had a goal with it. My goal was to join the military so I'd have GI Bill money. Yeah. And then take that money to go to school in Los Angeles to be an audio engineer. So that's what I did. And I got out of the military like 2 weeks before 9/11. Moved to LA, and I moved to LA on September 10th. And then the next day was 9/11, and almost went back to my unit and all this stuff, but I decided to stick it out in LA. And then went to engineering school, and then I got a job with Raphael Sadiq from Tony, and I worked there for almost a year. But living in LA was super fucking expensive, and I had a kid back home, so I lived in LA, I don't know, almost two years, and then came back here, and literally was homeless, living out of my car for like a year. Really out of pride. Like I could have moved back in with my parents. I just didn't want to. Yeah. And I say parents, my mom, but I didn't want to do that. So out of pride, I lived out of my car for almost a year. A friend of mine named Verse took me to a studio on Parambono, told me that they were looking for an audio engineer. Obviously, I went to school for that. So the dude there, his name was Keith. He hired me to be the studio engineer, but told me, I can't pay you. I don't have any money, but I heard you're homeless. You can live here rent free.
There you go.
So I lived out of the studio, and I worked there for about 3 years. I met a group. I know we were talking about them, Mojo, Easy Lee, and Trayson. They came in with a poet at the time named Glow. I started recording her, and they brought them in. I listened to the music. I was like, man, this is incredible. Hit Raphael Sadiq and was like, yo, I want to, introduce you to these guys. They're dope. My friend Brent, that used to be my manager, said, man, I can get them a show at the BET Awards after party.
There you go.
And at the time, I was selling dope, basically, because all I had a place to live, so I was selling drugs, what I mean? Like trying to get by. And I took some money I had, and we all went out to LA and rented a limo and tried to do it big. And my friend Brent was like, man, I'm going to invite Evan Bogart to come see Mojo. So he came to see Mojo. Loved him, was like, yo, it's dope. And he worked with a producer named J.R. Rodham, who was working with Dr. Dre. And then we all got in the limo and started drinking. Well, then they put on a beat, And, you know, I've always rapped, but
Yeah.
I wasn't actively making music. And I started freestyling, and he just looked at me and was like, "Where's your music?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, I'm the manager." He was like, "Nah, fuck that. Where's your music?" And I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "Man, meet me at this address tomorrow at 10 a.m. So I went and met J.R. Rodham, and the rest was history. He just started making records, and I ended up staying in L.A. I was supposed to fly back home. I stayed in L.A., and for almost a month, I worked on music with J.R., and then his lawyer was Zach Katz, who at the time was Dr. Dre's attorney. Now Zach Katz is probably one of the most powerful people in music. He was actually the president of Sony BMG, but he ultimately became my mentor. And we worked on records, and he was like, "Go back home to San Antonio and start getting your buzz up." And, you know, I decided to wrap a truck and press up 10,000 CDs and just give them away. And everybody thought I was fucking crazy to just give it away. But I figured by the time I could somebody could sell 3 CDs, I could give away 300.
Yeah.
And I'm just pushing my brand at that point. And it all became about brand identity. And it worked. I mean, everybody knew who I was within 6 months. But then I moved back to LA and was like, all right, man, I'm going to come here and we're going to keep working. And we kept working and working and working. Finally got introduced to this guy named Johnny Shipes, who ran Cinematic, who had, you know, Sean Kingston, a bunch of other people. And so he was like, "I want to sign you." So he signed me, started managing me, and within a year got me signed to Epic Records. So it was actually me, Sean Kingston, and Nipsey Hussle all signed to Epic Records at the same time. We all had the same management. And that's where my music career in the game actually really started. And I was also the artist who I wanted to sit in on every marketing meeting. I was annoying as fuck. Like, they hated me because I was like, I want to sit in on the marketing meeting.
Yeah.
Like, artists don't sit on a marketing meeting. Like, I don't give a fuck. I want to hear all this shit. Because in my mind, I always knew, man, if this don't work out, I want to be a music executive. And that's been my goal even before I started rapping. Even as my rap career kind of started, I was already managing a group. I was already behind the scenes, and I kind of just went front facing. So that's really how the journey started. Fucking went through it, was signed to Epic, fucking went on tour, was on the radio here, had 4 or 5 songs on the radio across the nation. Everything was going well for me, and then the guy who signed me at Epic Records is a guy named Charlie Walk. He quit, and when he quit, the replacement they got for him was a 32-year-old folk singer who decided, we're not doing hip-hop no more at Epic Records.
Wow.
So me, Nipsey Hussle, Sean Kingston, a couple other people all basically got shelved until they decided what to do with us in the Sony system. And I finally hit my lawyer and was like, I want out of this deal. It took almost a year to get me out of the deal. And by the time I got out of it, you know, it cost me $40,000 to get out of it. And the goal was get me out of it because I had other labels that were looking at me.
Yeah.
So before I signed with Epic, I had a bidding war between 5 labels, Def Jam, Atlantic, Universal. But we went with Epic because they offered the most money. And that was a valuable lesson, that sometimes the most money is not the best play. So I learned that the hard way. But that's how that started. And by the time I got out of the deal, it took me almost a year. And no label wanted me anymore because I hadn't been active for a year. I kind of just killed my own momentum. And after that, I was jaded. I was like, man, fuck the music industry. I don't give a shit about this shit no more. And was pissed off because I was that close. I was 2 weeks away from releasing a song with John Legend on the hook. So I knew that song was going to blow up, and I never got to put it out.
Damn.
So I put a little music out and did some things after life on Epic, but I just kind of I was jaded. I didn't want to do it anymore. And then that's what we were talking about. I got a job working for Apple. And the reason I did
is that in LA or San Antonio?
No, San Antonio. I moved back to San Antonio around that time. Moved back. I remember going to the job. They had like a job fair for Apple at the mall, and I walk in and it's like 100 people in there trying to get a job. It was actually the night of the Super Bowl, and I was pissed that I was going to miss the Super Bowl, but I needed a job.
That was when the job fair was.
So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go in there. And because I had the background in music, they were looking for someone to teach music classes for like GarageBand and Logic and all that, and I was certified and all that.
Yeah.
So I knew I had a good chance of maybe getting a job. I went in there, and it was funny, is like halfway through it, people were like, oh, yo, that's Question over there. And, blah, blah. And I was like, what the fuck? And all these people started coming to me and asking me to take a picture or sign an autograph. And so the lady who was hiring, she was like, who the fuck are you? And I was like, I'm a music artist from here that had a little bit of success, but she's like, well, why are you trying to get a job here? It's like, because I fucking need one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I got just totally sucked into the tech world and had a passion for computers and networking and worked my way up from very low at Apple to management, and then left to go work for Apple corporate, and I did that. I worked for Apple for almost 5 years, and then from there went to Rackspace and worked at Rackspace and was doing all kinds of cloud computing stuff at Rackspace. And then actually 2 former Apple employees started a IT company and asked me to come on to help manage it, and I did that for about 2 years. And during that, I was stacking up money and was like, man, I'm going to open a new recording studio. That was the plan. I was just going to open a recording studio because I miss making music. But I got real sick. And when I got sick, I got this rare stomach infection. They told me I was going to die. I was in the hospital on and off for like 3 months. And I finally kind of was just like talking to God and was like, yo, if you get me out of this, I want to do music again. Not be a rapper, but I want to be involved in entertainment, period. This is what I want to do. And I remember I called Nipsey Hussle, who was a really good friend of mine, just talked to him about it. And Nip was like, dog, this is your calling. Like, you mentored me. You mentored so many people. Like, you need to be in management. That's what you should be doing. So I got out the hospital bed one day and was like, this is what I'm going to do. I don't even know how I'm going to start this. And that's what kind of led to the phase that I'm in now with all the stuff I'm doing. It just exploded in the last 3.5 years.
Okay. So going back, man, you coming up as a young rapper, describe your style and tell me also who some of your musical influences were up to that point.
Yeah. So I was probably a little different being that I'm from Texas. So obviously I had the Texas influence. I loved Scarface. I loved Bun B. All that, Switch the House stuff that came up, I enjoyed a lot. So I was very much into that culture. But I grew up in the battle scene. So because I was in the battle scene, I grew up on a lot of underground hip hop. I listened to everything from, Company Flow to, I was definitely influenced by Nas and Jay-Z and all that kind of shit. So I had a different palette when it came to music. I was really into all hip hop. But my influences, if I say who they really are, it's Redman is one of my favorite rappers of all time. I love Redman. Biggie's one of my favorite rappers. I got Tupac on my arm. I'm a huge Tupac
I was going to ask you what you thought about some of them guys.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Pac. Bun B is one of my favorite artists. Scarface is one of my favorite artists. Big Pun is one of my favorite artists. So those guys, I like guys who can really rap, which is hard for me these days, like trying to do the stuff that I'm doing now, because the art of it is, I won't say lost, it's not, but it's not as mainstream as it used to be. But I love all it. Black Thought's one of my favorite rappers. Royce the 5'9" is one of my favorite rappers. Those are all guys that I idolize and look up to. But a good friend of mine, Killer Mike. Killer Mike is somebody who mentored me really early. Have a really good relationship with him. He's someone who as an artist, I adore because he's able to bounce between street music, conscious music, soul music, and that's really,
Killer Mike's dope.
That's really the kind of music that I felt like I made. I made soulful hip hop, and it definitely had a trap element to it and had a street element to it because I come from those environments. But I never was trying to be some super gangster, super whatever. It was just I definitely have a story. I sold drugs to survive, so that's part of my story. But I never would put it out there like the flex of it. That never really mattered to me. It was like I did this to get by. And really, it's funny growing up, like I did all those things, and most of the guys I know who sold a bunch of dope, they started rapping for the fame and fortune of it. And I started selling dope just so I could buy equipment to make music. Like that was my goal. My goal wasn't to be rich or have chains or a car. I just did it to buy Pampers and drum machines. That's really what I invested all my money into.
Yeah.
So that's I have a well-rounded influence. I could probably sit here and name 100 rappers.
That's all right.
So if I really talked about the all those ones I want, but the 3 that stick out in my mind are really, and I didn't mention 2 of them. So I'm probably the biggest Outkast fan in the world. Like I fucking love Outkast. Like I adore. My wife laughs about it. I got like 10 Outkast T-shirts in my closet. I'm a diehard Outkast fan. But Andre 3000 is probably up there for
3
me.
stacks. Come
3
on
stacks. Ludacris is one of my favorite rappers. When I came out, I patterned a lot of my stuff after Luda, and then Scarface is just one of the greatest storytellers ever, and he's from Texas, and Ghetto Boys were like the shit to me as a kid. So I love, and then I'm a huge fan of Dr. Dre. I've always been a huge fan of Dr. Dre. So, but I love Dilla, and I love all the underground shit too. Huge, Tribe Called Quest fan, all that shit. I mean, all of it. There's just I could sit here and talk about it all day.
Yeah. So shout out to all the hip hop fans tuning in right now. If you listening, drop a comment on who are your biggest influences in the hip hop game. I mean, I think that one of the things is that I think people in our era, right, 38, 39, 40 somethings, grew up in an era where hip hop was like, it was like, oh, hey, this shit's on now.
Yeah.
You know, you had Ice Cube, you
Cube
had
was one
NWA,
Cube was one of my favorite
you had
rappers.
Dre that was out there doing it on the West Coast. You had the East Coast coming on. You know, hip hop was finding its niche, so to speak.
Right.
You know, shout out to my homeboy Rafael Collazo, who's watching it right now. He shared the stream. Shout out to everybody watching in. He's from Philly.
Okay.
So I know he's an Iverson fan. I know he's Puerto Rican too. So I know he knows a little bit something about the Punisher, man.
Yeah.
And so
my wife's Puerto Rican, so yeah, we go back and forth about pun and a lot of shit. So
yeah, and the hip hop culture, of course, isn't perfect, but it's made a huge influence on our lives in mainstream culture in general.
Look at it's odd because I see hip hop as it basically bridged races and ethnicities and religions, and I know so much about things that most people like me wouldn't know about because of hip hop.
Yeah,
because I remember listening to Public Enemy as a kid, and they would talk about, you know, the Black Panthers and Fred Hampton and Eldridge Cleaver, and I would go to the library and find out who those people were. You know, you have people talking about 5%ers with the Wu-Tang Clan. Well, I wanted to know what that meant.
Exactly. You looked into it. You read into it.
That's probably what's missing from music right now for me, for this whole generation. You know, you have people who do it, but it's not as mainstream as then. Back then, hip hop was not as controlled as it is now. I don't want to say controlled because now it's just so fragmented that it's all over the place.
Man, I remember real quick. You talk about not as controlled, especially in the entertainment scene. I remember I was a kid. I must have been 8 years old, watching Yo MTV Raps, and they had a camera on. I don't know where, somewhere backstage, and here comes Will Smith.
Yep.
Just looking to get on the camera.
Yep.
And you know, the camera was here. He's looking to get in front of the camera and just start rapping. Right. And they got Tupac over here. They got all these other artists, Digital Underground. He just jumps up in front of the camera and starts rapping. I'm like, this dude's going to go somewhere.
Right.
I'm 8 years old. You know what I'm saying?
It's crazy that you say that because I'm working on something right now. And when I was doing research for it, I watched this old Yo MTV Raps video, and it was just like, I was just skimming through it. And there was this KRS-One interview, and I used to be a huge KRS-One fan. So I'm watching this KRS-One interview, and then Fat Five Freddy cuts to these teenagers. He's like, yo, these are these teenagers. Nobody's ever heard of them. They're super, super dope. Leaders of the new school. And I look over, I'm like, that's Busta Rhymes.
There's Busta Bust.
You know, the PTA song was before it even came out. And I was like, yo, this is before anyone had any clue who he was. And he was there just in the middle of Times Square freestyling. That part of the culture, I don't want to say is missing. There's a lot of people out here doing a lot of dope shit. But it's so fragmented. It's hard. We're oversaturated with so much shit now that it's hard to sift through it. It's just harder. Back then, I tell people this all the time. I had this conversation with a friend of mine like 3 weeks ago, and I was like, he said, "What do you think the problem with music is?" And I said, "Well, it's so accessible." When I grew up, I remember walking to the record store on a Tuesday because everything came out on Tuesday. I remember walking there to get a release. And I would, you know, whether it was on cassette, that's how old
tapes.
I am. It started with tapes, and then I finally graduated to CDs. And it might be 2, 3, 4 weeks before another album came out. So I would sit with that album that I bought, that I used my hard-earned money on, and then I would learn it from front to back. And I became emotionally invested in the music. We have less and less of that in this age because there's new music dropping daily. And it's, you know, now you're not spending $10 every time you want to buy something. You're just paying a flat fee, and you can listen to whatever you want at any time. It's in your pocket. That wasn't like that for, you know, I sound like the old man now.
We gotta drop some of that knowledge for the young cats.
So for me, it's a whole generation of people who don't value these things the way that we did, because they don't have that connection to it. You know what I mean? Not to say there isn't fans. There's fans. There's diehard fans that believe in stuff. But there's so much stuff out there. It's really hard to sift through it. And I think that's why you see more and more rappers having to do gimmicky things to get noticed, because just being good is not enough.
It's not good enough. Nah. And that's a whole nother. So real quick, we got a couple live viewers chiming in. We got Mickey Sweet saying, great interview so far. We got Cheryl Metal chiming
Mickey
in.
and Cheryl, I love
Question
them.
is amazing. Always has been.
Oh man,
And
thank y'all. They know I love them. So
yeah, we got to give a shout out to all our live viewers because you got a lot of options when you scrolling along your timeline these days, right? Just like in the music industry, right? So tell us in a nutshell, what are you up to these days?
Shit,
because you done said a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Give us the
all right. So I'll give you the story.
Cliff notes.
The Cliff Notes is about 3 years ago. Like I told you, I got sick and decided I was gonna start getting back in the entertainment world. Somebody hit me up and said, "Man, I made a post saying I'm gonna start a management company. I'm gonna get back in music." And of course, everyone hit me up. Yo, you're getting back in it? Because I got hit for 5 years where it was like, when you gonna put out more music? And I kept teasing it. I kept saying, yo, I'm gonna put out some new music. And then I was like, I've done it all already. I've done everything I think I can do in music, at least at my age. There was I didn't have that, like, I gotta do this. I felt like, man, I put out 12 projects. I put out thousands of songs. I've pretty much said everything that I think is worth saying. Everything I would rap about now would be, married with children. It would just be, nobody wants to hear that. So,
shout out to Al Bundy.
Yeah. So I'm the rap Al Bundy. But I put that up, and a friend of mine, said, hey, come check me out. I want to talk to you about it. I go to see him at his place of business, and it ended up being Cruising Kitchens, which is owned by Cameron Davies. And Cameron I had known for almost 20 years. But when right before I got my first record deal, he started working out with me. We did a couple shows together because he was working in the music, had a couple artists that he was messing with, and we just hit it off. I remember we took a car over there to get something done at 210 Customs when he was doing that, and we just became friends, and he started getting in the gym with me and got me in the best shape of my life. He has a picture now that he shows everybody where I'm all jacked up and I was in the gym. But when I got my record deal, they knew that I went to audio engineering school. So I negotiated, instead of giving me this huge advance, just buy me music equipment. I can record, I can record myself and mix myself and master myself. So they gave me $40,000, just a budget just to buy equipment. And so Cam was like, yo, we can put this in my shop. I was like, cool, I'm down to do it. And what happened was, the day that I was going to show up with the equipment, the doors were padlocked, and he sadly had to tell me, man, I went bankrupt. I got evicted. I was trying to save the company. I couldn't do it. I was like, shit. But he told me, one day, man, we'll end up doing this studio, man. I'm sorry. And I was like, cool. Fast forward, 9 years later, 10 years later, we run into each other at his shop. He's like, man, I see you, you're building a studio downtown. I was like, yeah, I'm working on it right now. I got, some money saved up. He said, well, shit, why don't we just team up and, let's do a studio together. And, he builds these shipping containers and mobile assets. And I said, well, shit, let's build a mobile one. And that could be a prototype to, I have still a ton of record label relationships and people in the industry I'm cool with. We can go pitch these things and see if we can get one built. And he agreed, and I still didn't know he was serious. I was kind of like, all right. He called me the next day and said, the shipping container's here. They're already walling it out. And I'm like, oh, this is really happening. And then I was working for an IT company, like I told you, and just got out of the hospital and was dealing with all that. And he said, man, why don't you just come work for me? Let's figure out how we can partner up. And I originally started with just doing some music stuff. And then next thing you know, it was, can you help me with this for the TV show? Can you help me with this for Cruising Kitchens? And it just grew and grew. And then during the pandemic, we kind of doubled down, and everybody was kind of like, oh shit, I don't know what's gonna happen. Cameron said, man, let's build a whole entertainment complex, because we got into boxing. And so we had thrown a fight at the Frank Irwin Center in Austin, and we did one at the Alamo Dome. And we kind of knew we needed our own boxing facility. We needed our own studio. We needed everything. And so now we have what I like to call a campus, 67,000 square foot entertainment facility that has an event center, has a recording studio, editing bays, green screen rooms, photography studios. It has a kitchen, a conference room, a barbershop.
It's got the works.
It's got the works.
It's got everything.
Merch shop. So we do merch there. We do everything. So there's not anything that I don't think we've covered. The last thing that we don't have there is a full court basketball court, but we're working on that right now. So when you ask me what I'm doing, I manage 5 recording artists, 9 professional boxers, Developing, we have one television show that was on Motor Trend that's moving to Discovery Channel. We have the boxing television show that we're developing that we're in talks with a couple streaming platforms, very big streaming platforms. So I have those 2 shows in development. I have a 3rd show in development. I kind of help manage Cameron's career, so to speak. I'm not his official manager, but I help with that. We have a shoe store, so I manage the shoe store.
Nice.
There's a ton of stuff that I'm involved with. And
Yeah.
Stuff with Cruising Kitchen. So we built that prototype, and that's what I was telling y'all. That led to me building a huge mobile recording studio for Pepsi, for Rockstar Energy, for the Super Bowl. So we built that and took it out to Venice Beach and did an activation during Super Bowl weekend. And I got some other stuff coming up with some other artists that we're building units for. We got Paul Wall, who's actually going to host our next Brawl boxing event May 21st. And we're doing some stuff with him, mobile assets, a little bit of everything, man. We're getting ready to do some stuff in the city of Port Aransas and help with a music festival down there. Kind of doing it all, man. There's not really anything that we're not sticking our hand in. The good thing is, like, I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy. But Cameron is crazy, and he's a gambler, and he loves to take risks, and they don't always pay off, but 9 times out of 10 they do. And that's why he's successful, because he has no fear when it comes to this.
Yeah, great entrepreneurs do that.
They
roll the dice.
He's a serial entrepreneur. It's literally, I compare it to gambling. Like, he likes to gamble, but he gambles on really good people, and that's what makes him successful. He's done a really good job of, insulating him with just smart people who are also, so to speak, gunslingers. They're just wild, wild west. Let's see what we can do. And I pride myself on, just when people ask me what I do, I'm just a creative, and that can be a business creative, a music creative, TV, film, who knows, man, anything, marketing. I love to be creative about marketing. So I'm kind of doing all those things, and I'm surrounding myself with an amazing team.
Yeah, that's
kind
important.
of built and hired, and they're fucking incredible. Like, I can't say enough about all of them. They're really that brilliant, that excellent. They make me look good, a lot better than I really look. So,
give me your thoughts on the current boxing game out there.
Boxing is a mess, and I can tell you firsthand because I'm in it. Boxing is a mess. A lot of it, MMA has kind of taken over that space because it's a little more thrilling and it's a little more dressed up. And boxing has always been traditional. And boxing is it's a difficult sport, period. I compare it to dealing with rappers. It sounds crazy, but rappers and boxers are not that much different. They definitely want to be seen and heard. They definitely think they're better than everybody else, because you kind of have to be if you're going to go out there and compete.
Yeah.
Rappers got to go compete. Artists have to go compete against other artists. Well, boxers physically have to compete, but it's also very mental. The boxing game itself it's controlled by, a couple entities that really have their hands around it, and then it's a bunch of people like us who are kind of the rebels and trying to do things. And then eventually what happens is those bigger companies try to basically take over the smaller companies. The good thing about us is that we have a leader in Cameron he's not willing to do that. We've already kind of been offered and talked to where some of these other promotional companies have tried to swallow us up and say, come join us. He fortunately has the means to keep it going. And so that's where we're at, but it's very messy. It's a lot of egos. It's a lot of old timers who are not cool with the new shit. Like, our event is very different, and some people love it. Boxing old timers don't really care for it, because the Brawl event that we started is combat meets culture. We're doing hip hop and boxing, and we did it before. Triller did it before anybody did it. We did it during the pandemic, even before the pandemic, and had artists perform. But now it's, I brought a drum line out for the last one, did like a halftime show. Yeah. They're trying to talk me into performing at the next one. Paul Wall's performing. Every event we do is going to be like that. Like, I'm working on something for August that I can't say where we're going to do it. It won't be at our event center. It's going to be a bigger footprint. But, like, I'm talking to T-Pain about coming and hosting that one. And that's kind of the thing we're doing. We're putting an artist at the commentator table with our commentator, Justin Simmons, and literally letting them kind of talk their shit. And it's exciting because they're not traditional commentators, but they're definitely entertainers, and they know how to speak on it. And We had Nims, the Bing Bong, the dude that's going viral for the Bing Bong shit. He came to the last one. It was fucking hilarious. I mean, it was just we had just had a blast. Had 1,000 people there, and it feels like you're in a Vegas style nightclub, but there's a fight going on. There's a DJ and a drummer playing, and I mean, we just go all out. It costs us a lot of money. We don't make a ton of money doing it, but it is building our brand. And then that was what I was saying, developing a TV show. We're now currently in production shooting a TV show about the making of these events and the fighters that fight on them. So.
Yeah, I've seen some of the videos, the promotional videos, some of the other videos you shared, and it does look legit. I want to get out there. I want to check it out because this complex looks like, I mean, it's the place to be. I mean, can people just walk up and come see y'all? I mean, what does it look like?
We're very open. I don't want to say open source because it's probably the wrong word for it. I mean, we're still particular about who we work with. But yeah, man, like I have a sneaker show coming up, actually the day after the fight. We're doing tons of community stuff where we can, we've had politicians in there. We've had different people. How can we also be a part of the community and create an ecosystem where people can create revenue and opportunity, but more so, leaning on each other and seeing how we can just make this a different city when it comes to the infrastructure. That's really, to me, has always been what's lack. It's funny, I had a conversation with a music executive this morning, and he was like, San Antonio is not known as an entertainment or a tech city. How do you change that? And I said, well, it has to be changed from the inside. Like, you're not going to just bring a whole bunch of outsiders here and they shake it up. Like, the people here have to be educated and informed, and there's people here that can do that, but they have to be willing to do it. I'm one of them. I'm one of those people, like, when you ask me, like, thanks for doing the podcast, I love doing this shit because there may be something I say, and not in arrogance, but there's something I may say that may spark something in someone else, and that's really what the fuck I'm about. Like, I want people to be inspired and driven, and I encourage people to reach out to me. I'm busy as hell, so that's always hard, but I encourage it. If I can share even 5 minutes of my time and it somehow helps somebody, I'm always game for that.
Yeah, now we appreciate you coming down. We're going to wrap the show up in just a bit, man. But, there's a lot to be said about San Antonio. We know about the talent that's here in all ways, whether it's with creatives, whether artists, whether it's, independent thinkers and thought leaders, and so to speak. There's a little bit of everything here. San Antonio's got a lot of talent.
It does. The thing it lacks is infrastructure. It really does. It's just infrastructure. It's just some of that guidance. The talent has always been here. And even more so now, like, I meet talented people all the time. Like, I'm in a position where people are asking me, like, to sign them, like, sign me and manage me. And I wish I could sign every one of them. They're all talented, but it takes money to do those things. It takes budget to do those things, and it takes time to do those things. And so it's a lot of pressure, but I love it. And I'm hoping that even if I can't directly impact someone, maybe I can indirectly impact someone. Because I think, I think of someone like Coach Popovich, and you look at the NBA coaching tree, half the coaches in the league came from that system. And I'm not saying on Popovich, but if there is a couple Popoviches here, and I think there is, if they're able to mentor and bring people up, then maybe we can have our own little tree of success. Yeah.
That's what's up, man. So shout out to all the live viewers chiming in tonight. We got people chiming in saying, I don't know how he keeps up with everything.
I don't
Well,
either.
He's got a personal assistant that set this up for him, right?
He does, and I probably need to get my personal assistant an assistant at this point. It's been crazy. It's funny, my personal assistant, shout out to Kevin Rodella. That's my assistant. He's amazing. Funny story about him when I talk about vibe and energy. He actually hit me up just to ask me some advice because he wants to be, music management consultant. He's done some stuff with some artists here. So he said, man, can I meet with you? I said, sure. So he came to the studio, talked to me for 15 minutes, and it was really just like a introduction. And 15 minutes into it, I said, man, do you have a job? He said, no. I said, I want to hire you.
Yeah.
And I didn't intend to hire anyone. I didn't even have a budget for an assistant, but I just knew that I wanted him part of it. And I can tell you the difference he's made in the small amount of time he's with is that he was out of town on vacation this last 3 days, and I felt it. I was like, oh, man, this is hard without him, and I don't know how I did this before without him. So shout out to him, man. He's a brilliant kid. All the kids I have working for me, I call them kids. They're adults, but they're all brilliant. So shout out Quentin Williams, Michael McKenzie, AJ Garces, Lonnie Smith, Jada Butler, Roman Casimiro, the whole team over there, man. I have an incredible Chris Lopez, who's my creative director and kind of like my right-hand man over there. we're just a group of rebels, outcasts, so to speak.
That's what's up.
So,
That's
yeah.
what's up. That's how things get done, man. And it's inspiring too. We
Yep.
talked a little bit about that earlier. You know, making moves, doing things with big brands, pushing the envelope here in San Antonio to say, hey, we're here too.
Yep.
You know, and there's business here, there's talent here, and it's on the come up. It sounds like
It is, for sure.
further than what it is right now.
Yeah, no, we're gonna evolve it into what it needs to be. Not saying we're the only one. There's other people out here doing it. Y'all are doing it. So
Yeah.
I encourage that. I'm inspired by that. You know, like even when I walked in here and we were talking, Guideline was telling me like, "Oh man, we got a podcast studio." I was like, "Yeah, I just built one too." He's like, "Oh, you're my competition." I said, "Nah, not really. Even though I love competition, I do, but it's always friendly with me
Yeah.
until someone crosses the line." But that's how you build a scene.
Yeah.
It's not all this camaraderie and community. Like people like we need unity and all this shit. That shit's cool. Like I want to be cool with people, but sometimes you need competition.
Yeah.
You don't have a Google unless you have an Apple. You don't have a Microsoft unless you have an IBM. You need competition, and we need to push each other to be better and greater. And that's how you grow a scene. If everyone's complacent and just doing their own thing, and not to say that you shouldn't have cross connection and work with each other, sure, but at some point, man, compete.
Absolutely.
It's okay
I grew up as a competitive athlete. I've been working my whole life.
Me too.
Shout out to my homie Sean Sykes, whom is probably a new workout and training partner. I hooked up with him today. He is getting ready to run a Ironman triathlon on a torn meniscus.
What?
So I wish him well. Sean, if you're watching this, I told you I'm going to share you this stream. We're going to have you on after the race to figure out how you got through that last
I
piece.
wish him ice and painkillers.
I mean, something.
Bad.
He's a shot. I mean, come on. We talking about this and how he's going to do it, man. But competition, listen, I worked out with this brother a couple weeks ago. I wouldn't have worked out as hard unless I was working out
Right.
next to this animal.
Right.
I wouldn't have worked out that hard.
Right.
And that's the sort of competition you need.
But at the end of it, I kind of make the correlation to like playing ball, right? Playing basketball. When I got a lot of homies I love dearly, but when I get on the basketball court, I'm trying to rip their heart out.
Yeah, we're gonna kill a style.
We're gonna kill each other, like bang out and go hard.
Assassins.
Exactly, and that's that. But the moment I walk off the court, it's all
we cool.
love.
We shaking
dapping,
hands.
we
Yeah.
shaking hands. You want to go get a drink? You want to go do this? So that's what I mean in competition. You want to push each other.
Yeah.
And iron sharpens iron. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that's where I'm at.
That's one of the things, and I want to ask you. I'm gonna get some quick takes from you,
Sure.
and then we're gonna get your final words from you, and we're gonna end the show. But that's one of the things, because I want to ask you. You got the GOAT written on Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
Tell me who's the best basketball player of all time.
Damn.
I gotta put you on the spot.
It's Michael Jordan for me.
So one of the things about Mike is that everybody say he was an assassin. He'll forget about his family for a win, a next bucket.
Nah, if you watch The Last Dance, you see that.
Last
that
Dance.
kind of, just killer. He's a killer.
Killer.
You know what I mean? There's no complaints.
Killer
There's no
instinct.
nothing. I'm gonna go get it no matter what.
We gonna win at all costs.
And when somebody beat him, he was like, "Oh no,
we coming back.
We coming back.
We come back. You on the list.
Yeah.
He talked about what's his name, Russell from Utah Jazz. He was on my list.
Right. He was on my list of people I wanted to just put a dagger through their heart. So that's why Michael Jordan is the greatest to me.
Yeah.
And I'm from the era, even though I think LeBron is amazing. What he's done is amazing. And I think maybe when it's all said and done, maybe he's in that, bumps Jordan. But for me, it's Jordan.
So let me give you this top 5 all time starting 5 by position.
By position, point guard for me is Allen Iverson.
You got to put AI.
Jordan is shooting guard. Small forward Larry Bird. Power forward
Oof.
Tim Duncan. And center
You gonna go with Timmy?
Timmy.
Oof.
And then center for me is Akeem Olajuwon. I love.
You gonna pick Akeem?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's that Texas thing too.
Even though
That's not a bad
I
5.
could put Shaq. I could put Kareem. I could put Bill. Bill Russell was really before my time. I know how great he was, but I don't know. I don't have enough data there for me
That's
to say
all good.
Bill. But Hakeem, I watched Hakeem, the Dream, shake people up and make Shaq look
Footwork.
like nothing. His footwork was crazy.
My gosh.
Yeah, so that would be my starting 5.
Best in your opinion, and this is gonna be you can take it any way you want. Best football player you've ever seen.
Best football player I've ever seen is Barry Sanders.
Ooh, come on now. You gotta
Barry-
take some love for Detroit
Yeah,
in here.
Barry Sanders.
You
was-
talk a lot about Michigan. Royce,
Yeah,
5'9".
well, no, I have an affinity for Detroit hip hop.
Yeah.
I mean, even like I didn't bring him up earlier, but like Eminem, I'm not a big fan of his stuff now, but coming up, like he was incredible to me.
Yeah.
That whole Detroit scene, Jay Dilla, and I could talk about all day, but like Detroit sports doesn't, the Pistons, Bad Boys, I fucking huge fan of them, watching them do what they did, but I always wanted Michael to, finally crush him, and he finally did. Dennis Rodman was one of
So
my
I was
favorites.
gonna just say Dennis Rodman, dude. Like, he's honestly probably the best defender I've ever seen.
Yeah, and clearly the best rebounder. Like the guy.
I mean, he could guard all five
positions.
And he was guarding Magic, Bird,
Yeah.
Jordan.
And nobody hustled like him.
There's pictures of him guarding
I got
Shaq.
a crazy story about Dennis Rodman. I met Dennis Rodman.
All right, give us a
14
story.
years
We got to
old.
hear the story on Dennis Rodman.
So I was living here. He played for the Spurs. I was probably, I don't know, 13, 14. So when he came down here, and a friend of mine said, man, let's go to Canyon Lake. I'm going to go out there and meet some girls or whatever. So we went, and this boat pulls up, and it's Dennis Rodman.
And on a boat on Canyon Lake.
In Canyon Lake, and he's out there with
And there's Madonna on there.
No.
Madonna's not on the boat.
Some random white dude on the boat with him. And you could tell they're drunk as shit. And he's like, hey. And he just starts talking to us. Where, how old are y'all, whatever. And he's like, y'all want to come on the boat? We went on the boat. And then he offered us beer, and we drank beer with Dennis Rodman. So I hope he doesn't get in trouble for it. But, yeah, he was giving alcohol to minors.
I'm sure he's done a lot of other things.
He's done a bunch of shit. So, I got drunk with Dennis Rodman. I was like 14 years old.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. That's a good story.
Yeah, it's cool.
So let me get some quick takes on some rappers, too.
Sure.
We talked about a few. I was going to ask you these already. Tupac
to me was I got Tupac on my arm, but a lot of it is not just his music. It's just when you think about him being as young as he was. I mean, he died. He was 25 years. Yeah, he was young. You know what I mean? But he was prolific, enigma, charisma. Like, could walk in the room and suck all the air out. That to me is the it factor that you have to have beyond just being a good musician or a good rapper. He transcended that to me. So Pac is someone who I hold in very, very high regard.
Biggie.
Same thing, but Biggie could rap his fucking ass off. And when people ask me who was a better rapper, I say Biggie.
Yeah.
But who did I get more inspired by? Was probably Pac. Biggie was incredible. The fact that he didn't write down anything, come off the top of the head. I started freestyling. That's like my thing. And also became a sex symbol, but he was fucking fat with a lazy eye.
Well, we say fat and ugly as ever.
However, I stayed Coogie down to So that's Biggie is incredible.
Dre.
Dr. Dre is just somebody who I admire. You know what I mean? As a producer, I definitely admire him. As a businessman, I admire him to see where he came from, not just NWA, but World Class Wrecking Crew, and was doing stuff in skating rinks in LA, and then the NWA thing. And he's someone who's always been able to reinvent himself. So he went from this gangster rapper to this super producer, and then put out Eminem and was putting out all this stuff on Aftermath, and then Kendrick Lamar. The guy's career is
timeless.
It's timeless. Like, all his music is dope.
So give me your biggest musical influence right there. Who's your biggest musical influence that you've had in your life?
Biggest musical influence I had in my life is Raphael Sadiq. Just because I worked for him and was around him, but I saw personal connection to it. You know what I mean? But that's probably my biggest influence.
Tell me your biggest athletic influence. I know you got Allen Iverson on your shirt, but give me somebody else other than AI.
Someone other than AI. Athletic influence. Sounds crazy to say now, but Jason Kidd, when I was growing up, was one of my favorite players. And I loved his pass first mentality, and that's like what we're talking about, creating opportunities for people. He did that for people. You know what I mean? He made people shine, and I like people who do that. So yeah, I'd probably say Jason Kidd.
Give me your biggest entertainment influence.
Crazy, man. Dave Chappelle.
That ain't too crazy.
But I have a low key obsession with Dave Chappelle. I think he's a genius. And,
he is.
And I study him, and I'll find myself watching the Chappelle Show or watching his stand up like just randomly. So I'm a huge Chappelle fan.
I'm a big, athletic influences. I thought for a minute, when I said the question, because I didn't plan to ask you that, but Muhammad Ali came to mind.
I like Muhammad Ali a lot. One of my favorites. I was a huge Mike Tyson fan. Mike. And then when I was young, Julio Cesar Chavez was like one of my favorite fighters.
Yeah.
Like, he's just brutal. He just nonstop. So yeah, boxing wise, Ali's up there for me. But again, I didn't get to really see him fight until later. But what he stood for is incredible to me. So
quick thoughts on the MMA game out there right now.
It's weird, man. I hate saying this to people. I'm not I'm not.
You ain't into it, but you into boxing?
I'm into I've always been into I boxed when I was young, so I've always been into boxing. Me and Cameron are probably similar in that. He's not, I want to say he hates MMA, but he's probably not the biggest fan of it. I like MMA. I tune in for like the really big fights, but I can't say that I'm this like constant fan where I stay glued in and know what's going on. I kind of get caught up by other people that are diehard MMA fans. I've never been to an MMA fight, so I have a feeling if I went, maybe that would sway me a little more.
Yeah, it's interesting. Talking about fighting and boxing, I remember I was like 14, 15 in San Antonio, and I'm down at the Riverwalk. Next thing you know, we at the mall, and someone starts buzzing. Hey, Mike Tyson's at Victoria's Secret. He's at Bed Bath & Beyond. We're like, what, Mike? We go over there. There goes Mike taking pictures with some women.
Are you serious?
At Bed Bath & Beyond. We met Mike. I remember seeing Mike and looking. I could see the top of his head. I'm like, man, this dude is really short.
Yeah, he's 5'10".
Yeah.
5'9", 5'10", yeah.
And I ain't very tall. Breaking news, too, folks. I just got this text. I try not to look at the phone while we in here for real and being present in the moment, but there is breaking news. It ain't that breaking, in my opinion, but Chris Rock has made some statements about the incident. He says, what up, Boston? How was your weekend? Great entrance. Chris Rock is an entertainment genius. Some of his lives.
Bigger and Blacker is probably one of my favorite.
Never Scared. Come on now.
Yeah.
He told a sold-out crowd that he had written the show on how he was going to perform it before the weekend incident. Then he had to change things up. He says, I'm still processing what happened. He says, so at some point, I'll talk about that shit. It'll be serious. It'll be funny. But right now, I'm going to go tell some jokes. So that was his public statement. Now, a lot of people are asking if he's going to respond. He probably will and make a statement about the whole incident.
I saw Jim Carrey's take on it, which I found interesting. Jim's
an interesting cat.
I
don't know him, but I'm just talking.
Yeah, he's an interesting cat, but his take on life is a little different than most Hollywood shit. And he said, me personally, if I'm Chris Rock, I'm suing for $200 million. And he said, really, because you've now infringed on who I am for the rest of my life. My personal brand is that I got slapped by another man.
You got the shit slapped out of you.
Right. And he's like, I would sue. And Will has the money to pay me, so pay me. And he's like, and then because that is going to be the slap heard around the world forever.
How do you recover from that, by the way?
I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, how do you? Chris Rock is one of the few people that I think can. Yeah. Because he's a genius. He'll turn this into something hilarious.
Yeah, and they got smart people around him, I assume.
Sure. Yeah, they do. So I think Chris Rock, out of anybody, is probably more prepared to handle that than, say, somebody else got slapped. Yeah. Especially if it was some macho guy who will smack the shit out of, you can't repair your image, So I don't know. But when I heard that, I almost thought about that. Like, it was me, someone slapped the shit out of me. I'm probably not just standing there. I'm not as.
I don't know how he just took it like that. Not trying to dodge it?
I think he was in shock. I thought when he walked up, he was smiling, so I think he thought it was a joke.
How is it not reaction? For me, come on. Someone take a swing at you. I'm not going to let you just. He's just straight up.
I think he was just in shock. He didn't think. I wouldn't think anyone would slap me at the Oscars, so I can imagine he didn't think that either. Yeah. And then it happens, and then you're kind of still in shock, like, wait, this motherfucker just slapped me? Yeah. Getting slapped unexpectedly is probably not. If you're expecting a fight, you're gonna be more prepared for it. But when you don't expect it. Yeah. So I think that had a lot to do with it. He was just kind of like, wow.
This whole incident is gonna be a dissertation for somebody. Yeah, they're probably writing it already.
Probably.
Listen, we're gonna wrap up the show. Q, thank you so much for being here. If you're watching with us, thanks for rocking with us tonight. Go ahead and reshare this. Shout out to everybody joining us. If you're interested or wondering how you can be involved in VODPOD Media, DM us, comment. Let's hook up. Let's link up. We in here trying to do business. We in here want to make this studio, take it to the next level. And so let's get with us on that. If you want to hook up, if you want to be featured, let's talk. There's a world of opportunities right in front of us. We want to bring you in. We want to talk. We want to do business. We want to do good business with good people. So Q, I'm gonna let you get the final words, close out the show, give us some closing thoughts, however you want to take it home.
Well, I'll shout out everyone at Davies Entertainment and all the entities there. That's my family, and they've taken really good care of me, and I plan on doing the same to them. And my kids, shout out to my kids. I'm sure my son is probably watching, unless he got bored and turned it off. Last word I always say, man, and this is kind of like something I live by is, and I talk about team and family, it's really important, is everyone always asks me, what the key to success is. Like, how are you successful, or how'd you do this? And everybody's like, is it money? Is it relationships? Is it? And I always say, man, the key to success is having other people believe in your dream like it's their own dream.
Ooh.
And if you can get people to do that, you can't fail. And that's the core of building a team. The team has to believe in your dream like it's their own, and vice versa. So I'll part with that. That's my gift to whoever's watching and tuning in.
That's what's up. That's
All
what's
right,
up,
man.
my man. Hey,
Pleasure, brother.
Pleasure, man. And this, let this be the start of future business too.
No, it is.
Whatever we can do to support you, man, let us know.
Vice versa.
All
Vice
right,
versa,
man.
100%, man. So whatever y'all need, hit me. Let's go.
Appreciate you, man.
All right, brother.
All right, man. That's it. And we out. 3, 2, 1, close. Don't leave us hanging out to dry. We ain't here talking about that video we just saw with old girl. No, I'm joking.